Welcome back to the Long Horizon Show as we continue our conversation with Mr. Clifton Taulbert. I'm your host, Luke Fears. If you're just finding us, make sure you check us out on YouTube or follow us on your favorite social media or podcast platform. We hope you enjoyed this episode of our 4-part series with Mr. Clifton Taulbert.
Mr. Taulbert, thanks again so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us. We're talking about moving to St. Louis on that last train north. I had a chance during our break to look up a little bit about the civil rights protests that was happening in St. Louis in the summer of 1964. Yeah. And, it shares about how Percy Green and Richard Daley climbed the unfinished north leg of the arch that was being built in St. Louis to demand fair employment for black workers. And it led to many arrests and attracted national media attention. And it displaced, I guess part of the frustration too is the construction project displaced over 20,000 residents, many of which were black, and destroyed hundreds of black businesses. So, there's rightful or justified anger going on, and you're rolling in probably unaware of what's going on.
Totally unaware.
And you're 19, 20, or however old you are going up there.
Either 17 or 18.
Yeah, real young. And, the Forrest Gump-like circumstance where you get hired by Jefferson National Bank.
Yeah, the Jefferson Banking Trust.
Jefferson Banking Trust. And the word gets out that the banking community hired a black.
Oh, they did. It wasn't that the word got out. I mean, everything hinged on that hiring.
Wow.
It was a major press release. Everything. I mean, because once that happened, I won't say it took the steam out of the sailing, but that was one of the focal points of the demonstration, was the lack of blacks involved inside the bank in meaningful positions.
Yep. I read a little bit further, and one of the Percy Green, I think it was in jail for 30 days. The other one guy gets out on bail and negotiates for more workers even to be on the Arch project as well. But yeah, that's crazy. It's Forrest Gump-like that you were in that circumstance as a young man, walking in unaware.
Yeah, totally unaware that St. Louis was not Mississippi. And I come from St. Louis was Mississippi.
Wow. It seems like you have a lot of these unaware stories where you're unaware about talking to Michael Jordan or Sandra Day O'Connor, and you're just taking it a moment at a time. It seems like you mentioned.
Now it's interesting. I've always loved people, but I never thought about it from the perspective of who they were, from where they had come, or anything like that. But you're right. I seem to have always been at the right place at the right time, or the right set of circumstances, and to have met people that I would remember, for as long as my memory lives, I would remember them. And there was no reason for our paths to have really crossed. It just happened.
You're the Forrest Gump. like you're
And the irony is the author, the Southern author who did Forrest Gump, did a review of my book for the LA Times, Watching Our Crops Come In. Wow. Did an incredible review. And we stayed in communication for quite a while.
Wow. Yeah. All the different people that your life has touched. It's a pretty amazing legacy to look back on.
Yeah, it's can be scary too.
Scary? What do you mean?
Yeah, just was I supposed to have done anything? Did I manifest those relationships to their fullest?
Sure.
Or did I get overwhelmed by who they were and retreated as opposed to moving forward? I don't know.
Interesting. So, when you think about being scared, you have kind of a fight or flight response sometimes. So you talk about retreating, maybe not leaning in or not having the courage, if you will, in certain times, but then seems like other times you had plenty of courage.
Maybe that's a good assessment. When you said, and there were times that I was probably more courageous than not. Yeah. I remember when I had the opportunity to, General Omar Bradley is one of the most praised military five-star gentlemen that we've had. And to be able to be on a major magazine, Prolific magazine did a major story. And they included me in on the story with Omar Bradley.
Wow. What was that story about?
It was about the military. It was about the Vietnam War, because I was a soldier at the time. And it wasn't, I think it was more recognizing the person of General Bradley. I mean, he was just very highly recognized.
And that's who you were serving at the time when you were in the 89th Presidential Wing?
Not him. No, he had retired.
Oh, okay.
No, he was like an icon,
Yeah.
General Bradley. And to be in the same room, in the same floor with him was just absolutely amazing.
And the same article.
Yeah, and in the same article.
I mean, that's wild. Okay, so you're coming in. One idea, or Forrest Gump, sure, but in the biblical character of Joseph, some reason it's thinking about you where you're going to St. Louis, and then you're kind of like the chauffeur or cupbearer to the president of the bank.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they hired you to, you get a job, but then you're serving the president of the bank like immediately. It seems like.
Yeah, it did. I would say within 48 hours.
Rob Hudson, that's immediately. So you have this really cool opportunity to, be trusted enough to drive him around in St. Louis downtown after coming in from Mississippi, to see a little bit behind the curtain from a bank leader's perspective as well.
I guess to some extent I did. I didn't really recognize all that I learned in that environment. But Dylan Ross was from a family of bankers, the Ross family. They had banks throughout Missouri, southern parts of Missouri, including St. Louis. And they were a very prominent financier family in our country, and perhaps even more important in the St. Louis area. But, and the irony is that he had a nephew, a major banker as well. And guess where the nephew went to college?
Where?
Oral Roberts University.
Oh, wow.
And he stayed right around all across the hall for me.
No way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so he passed away, unfortunately, but whenever he'd come to talk to us, man, we'd always go out to dinner and stuff like that, because we had that historical connection, sure, because it was his uncle that actually owned the bank, the chain bank.
Wow. That's wild to think, you didn't orchestrate it. We had this dream to own a bank. We go and temp agency places you at the bank, or the employment agency places you at the bank. You're working for the president of the bank. You're living across the hall, from the banking family. Did you notice these connections? You didn't recognize, or did you recognize some of
I would say I recognize them more after the fact rather than during the fact or anything like that.
Yeah.
At some point you start, it's almost like quilting. When people quilt, the piece is already there, but the quilt is not there yet. And I would say that the pieces of my life were happening, they were already there in a brown paper bag or somewhere in a closet, but they were there. Mm-hmm. And but at some point, bringing things out of the bag, bring the frame out of the closet, and begin the process of quilting, bringing all these pieces together, and we're creating a pattern that is more unique when it is finished, and if one would just decide to leave it alone and not do it. And that's how I saw my life to some extent, that all of these pieces, and when I got permanently stationed at Dow Air Force Base, I worked for the base commander, which did make a lot of sense, because I was an airman. I wasn't a sergeant or above that. But anyway, and the next thing I knew, I get a full background check, top secret clearance, and I'm working for the President of the United States. You're in and out of Air Force One. You know, it wasn't a strange place to me. Wow. And it was very interesting. And also so what is the president from Texas? Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
Yes, sir. His wife kept a notebook, everything I'd ever done.
Really?
Yeah. I've met, I think the older daughter of the Johnsons. We became good friends along with she and her husband. Every time a book would come out, she would make sure that she'd get a review copy of the book. And she sent it to me the autograph or whatever, and I would do that, send back to her. But it's huge. So my mother cut another article out on the day back in.
Wow. So they took an interest in you or notice, again, like it seems like a pattern of a lot of people noticing your potential.
You know, I never thought about it, but when I'm forced to think about how these things happen, they were not things that I planned at all. I just end up being there. And and I remember we were in a meeting in Washington, D.C., and I was there. And President Johnson's daughter was there as well. I'm trying to think that the older daughter, I know she had two daughters, I can't think of their name, but she was there. And there's another person that I worked with that I really wanted to see and shake hands with and stuff like that. And this lady that I worked with just literally ignored my presence. I mean, just as if I wasn't speaking to her at all. Well, within seconds, President Johnson's daughter comes down the step, right almost like in between the two of us, runs over and gives him his big hug. Oh, Clifton! Oh, I was so glad to see you. Wait till I tell mother. You know.
Wow.
And so this other lady said she just kind of looked and went away. But I'll always remember how President Johnson's daughter just came up. Dude, how you doing?
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow. And how long had you been working there at that point, you think?
Well, I didn't work in the White House or anything like that. Sure. My work took place at Andrews Air Force Base, which was the 89th Presidential Division. Mm-hmm. So everything had to do with travel.
Sure.
Air Force One.
Yeah.
That's the area that I worked in.
Okay. But would you be on the plane with them? Is there?
Not a travel. I was on the plane in and out. The different things, these are heat formats, papers that he had to have a program, something like that. And if anything happened to his plane, whatever, that came through my desk.
Okay.
And
well, that's a lot of responsibility too for 20 some odd year old. You know, you were late 20s or something.
Yeah,
it seems like. Wow, that's cool. So you're operating the logistics side of the Air Force One.
Yeah.
Okay. And getting to know the Johnson family, all in the midst of like the civil rights movement. Did you meet Martin Luther King or any of those guys that were, instrumental at the beginning of the civil rights movement?
I never met Dr. King at all, even though I spoke at his church. I never had a chance to personally meet him. And I'm trying to think, there were, in St. Louis, Clay. There was a guy named Clay, Alderman Clay.
Right.
He was very well steeped in the civil rights movement in St. Louis, and it very had impact on our country as well. I knew him.
Okay.
And he was whatever. I did not meet him but he was one of the ones who created the context of, we'll know that you kept your word when you hired someone who does not look like you. Well, I was the person hired, and that is when Representative Clay, they were no longer protesters. Once that happened, within a day,
okay,
that if the protesters changed.
And so when that happened, you're hired. You don't really know, or you're aware because there's press releases going on.
Yeah, I didn't realize
That it was you.
the weight of that until after the fact. Because when I got hired through the employment agency and went to the bank for the first day, and I began to get some idea, oh, this is typed to something else.
I'm the only black guy here.
No.
Or, I mean, we're the only black
No, there was another black guy.
Okay.
And between the two of us, because he couldn't leave his position, and I took in part of his position, that allowed him to do some of the other things. I think there may have been several types of things in the employment side that they wanted to see happen within the banking industry.
Okay.
And all of those things did take place.
So then later does Clay Altman maybe I pronounced his name wrong, but does he clarify to you or?
No. We just met at it was like a function.
Okay.
A cocktail function or something in St. Louis. This is where I met him. But, and that would have been after that.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing it right. The weight of that did not hit me until years later. And I realized when they were talking about really hired, I think it was, oh my God, they hired me. I had never thought about it. That's the banks in the full context of that.
So fun and interesting and you've been a lot of places all over the world. Your books, your speeches have struck a chord and have, I think, positively impacted the communities all over the world.
I know in China, I was really in Hong Kong, and then they were educated some China. And Martin Lee, which is a Chinese, the political person in China, he's probably was the heartbeat of democracy, a global democracy guy.
Yeah.
And to be on the same program with him, sitting right beside him, talking with him.
Is he the guy that owned the media company in Hong Kong?
I don't know. I know that I don't know.
Okay.
On that. But I'm thinking that he seemed to have been more and university related.
Okay. Wow. How interesting. So you're in China. You're invited to China to talk about the habits of the heart. And so is it an academic group?
Yeah, they come from all over the world. Wow. The educators there and the professors, all of the writers as well. But they were talking about character education, not as a sideline, but as a mainline conversation. Sure. Because I guess I'm assuming that the thought pattern was there are some things that grow by themselves and become. But character is an act of doing and becoming. And if the conversation dies out, and it's conceivable that character and what it stood for would lose its place and maybe not embraced as well as it should have been.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. And so let me rephrase that, make sure I understand. So fostering character as like an ongoing process, the day-to-day thing. Yeah, it's important to not lose sight of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the eight habits of the heart is a story of day-to-day people who did not lose sight of their purpose.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to leave behind, something that can move forward and stay in the process of moving and becoming. I have come to realize that I'm very fortunate to have life. And I think once we begin to understand that life is not something we purchase, it is not something we can put in a ball and make sure that it is safe. But life is a gift. And this gift is better recognized and fulfilled when others are in our circle of life as well. And that to me was a great lesson that I picked up in the Mississippi Delta. No matter how not the best, but at the same time, you're asking yourself hard questions. What can I do? And who will I become? And what will I bring to the table of life that will be of significant value? I have found that my life is better served when I find myself serving.
That's good.
And I don't want that to get lost, because, I know technology is here to stay. I realize that, but it aids us, it helps us. It, to some extent, can reduce communication between others. And I get just a little bit apprehensive. I remember I was doing some work in Syracuse, New York, and I was talking to a group of educators there. I said, for a month, this was my assignment. It's very easy to do, but it's very difficult to watch it materialize in front of you. Mm-hmm. I want each of you to make this pledge to me and to yourselves and to others that for the next month, I will say good morning to every one of my peers.
That's good.
I will say good morning. Yeah. I said, keep in mind, your good morning was not meant for you. Your good morning was meant for someone else.
Sure.
And their good morning was meant for you. Because so many things that we're trying to accomplish within the culture of our academic institutions, this idea of shared commitment, this idea of shared understanding of what can be and what we can bring to the table to make it happen. And these are the types of things that makes tomorrow a very valuable day because of what we bring to it. We honor tomorrow by how we live today. And we prepare tomorrow by choosing how we live today.
Yeah, that's good.
And so that to me is understanding that life is this incredible gift, that we didn't purchase it. It wasn't loaned to us. So no one is holding the card saying you got, 5 years, 10 years. We got the legitimacy of living, which is again, how we live. That's our choice. And how do we share that? That's ours as well. And in writing, most of my writing that I've done, I've always thought of it as Clifton writing a letter to the world. Because I grew up with my great aunt, and she was a letter writer. All of our families have gone and moved across the country, from Detroit to San Francisco, to Cleveland, Ohio, to Cincinnati, to St. Louis, to Chicago, etc. But she kept in touch with everybody.
Yeah, pre-email, long-distance phone calls, or, he was on the letter.
It was a letter.
Yeah.
She had a rocking chair by the window where she would watch the world. And there she would give me my task, was to go to the post office. She said, go to Miss Johnson's post office. And Miss Johnson was white. It was not her post office. It was our post office. Mm-hmm. But that was the time my great aunt called it Miss Johnson's post office and get my mail. So I go up and get the mail from post office box 145. They bring the letters to my great aunt, bring it back to her. And what she did, she read every letter out loud while I was there. She said, and she read every letter out loud. And then when she got ready to write them back, I was there as well. And she wrote the letters out loud.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And to me, that has been one of my great grasps of the power of words.
That's cool. Okay.
She read them aloud and wrote them aloud. And then she put the little stick on it, the 3-cent stamp. Stamps for 3 cents. 3-cent stamp. And I take it back to Miss Johnson's post office, and there they would go to the family.
Wow.
I watched others. I'm either watching or being watched, where I watched others. And I coined a phrase many years ago called the porch people. Mm-hmm. And these were the people who had no problem telling you, watch your manners. I mean, this is like a daily admonition. Mm-hmm. Watch your manners. And for those of us who were fortunate enough to have those who cared enough about us to tell us to watch our manners, And we were challenged to do so and did so. And because of that, we didn't spoil our future. We had a chance to grab the future that awaited us. So I see that whole process of adults assuming their responsibility, which to me, I think it is a responsibility, to be genuinely concerned about the next generation. And what can I bring to that generation today that they could take with them into their adult generation and, of course, pass it on as well. Oh. And I think people want this, but we have become very individualistic now. And having aunts and uncles that's close by is not as prevalent as it was when I was a kid. So if you don't have the kinship by blood or by marriage around you, but you have the kinship of humanity around you. And I think we must find ways and embrace opportunities to get to know the neighbors, to really truly get to know them, and be made fully aware that you are available of my help should you need it. And there are ways to do that, say that, etc. But growing up in that world, not as many people, not as much money to spread around, so doing for each other became part of the life structure.
Yeah.
Which brought with it benefits that you didn't realize until maybe years later.
Yeah.
And you look back and you see, what would have happened had this not been in place in my life? What would have happened had I not had a grandfather or grandmother that would make sure that I was up every morning to go to school? Mm-hmm. You know, the journey was hard to get up that early and to go to ride 100 miles round trip every day for 4 years and not miss a day out of school.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things shaped to some extent who you are, what you expect of yourself, and what you can bring into the life of others.
Sure.
And that's what I think I saw. I saw this sense of kinship, the human kinship. Yeah. People that were not kin at all. In fact, I wrote an article that was on LinkedIn recently called What Happened to Cuz.
Okay.
C-U-Z.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this happens in the white community, but in the black community it does. You go to a funeral, everyone shows up. People you haven't seen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years show up. Yeah. And you walk up with your aunt or your uncle there, and someone comes and stand in front of you, and the uncle and aunt know that you don't remember them, so they help you out. It's not, this is Cuz.
Yeah.
Cuz lived in Myersville. Don't you remember that? Yeah. And he always brought us a watermelon every summer. Yeah, well, this is Cuz.
Okay.
And then Cuz started talking to you. Boy, it's so good seeing you. I haven't seen you in a long time. You doing good? They actually care if you were doing good.
Yeah.
And they accepted the moniker of Cuz with great aplomb. Mm-hmm. Cuz. So I wrote the article, the essay really, What Happened to Cuz? Because with Cuz in your life, they were helping raise you as well. Mm-hmm. And to solidify the lessons you're being taught by others, they coming right along and reinforcing that. Mm-hmm. And so for long, we realized, well, this must be the way I'm supposed to live. This is who I am. Mm-hmm. This is what Cuz said. So Cuz was these non-blood related people that was part of our humanity. Mm-hmm. And they brought into our lives the opportunities that we had and how much they believed in us. You know, they weren't afraid to say things like that. We were expecting good things from you. They wouldn't say expecting. They said, we're expecting good things from you. Mm-hmm. Because I remember, you know, many of them didn't go to school. They couldn't afford school. School was not available to them. But they wanted it for their children. And I remember there was one man in my community. Unfortunately, he was really an alcoholic. But he had a great interest in children doing well at school. And he'd always be most often sitting under a shade tree with his wine bottle and a brown paper bag. But the paper bag had taken the shape of the wine bottle.
Yeah.
Okay. So we passed by him, and he know we're in school. He stops us every time. Yeah. He seemed to know when your academic cards of school, your cards were coming out.
Oh, wow.
Your report cards. Yeah, he seemed to know that, and he wanted to know, Clifton, how you doing in school? And how many A's did you get? I said, well, I got 4. Well, what else did you get? Did you get an F? No. Now, they do give away A's down at that school, don't they? Well, that's all you want is A. Don't be taking no B's and C's and F's. That's not what you went to school to get. Get you an A. I mean, and I will always remember that. And like when we have a family reunion, I always share the story of the alcoholic who was very much committed to us bringing an A home.
Wow. You paying attention.
Yeah.
Saying good afternoon. Mm-hmm. Hey, come here, boy.
Yeah.
You're making A's? Yeah, I mean that.
And you never know which thing does the most. You know, sometimes the smallest piece of a puzzle gives you a clear example of what the puzzle is all about. Mm-hmm. And they have big pieces there. But sometimes the smallest piece you find, and you find it place to fit, then now you got a pretty good picture of what's going to be there.
How do you determine, which stories to tell?
I think about it. I think about the readers. What am I trying to tell the reader? I don't think about 100 people or 1,000 people reading a book. I think about one person sitting down with me and we're talking. And I've written a book, Last Train North. I'll leave it home. I'm becoming an adult for going out to find my future, what it may hold. And I know that. And so as a writer, I want the reader to not be me, but somehow looking over my shoulders and seeing how he or she would have done the same thing. And I wanted to be I like to create an internal conversation between myself and the reader. Because in that way, I feel they will get the essence of the book. If I'm writing in such a way to draw questions out of them in conversation they wish to hold.
Yeah.
I want it to be a dialogue of possibilities, a dialogue of what can be done different, what can be done better, what could I have done better.
Sure.
I like, and I think when you write from that perspective, you give the reader an opportunity to add his or her perspective. And then the book becomes a good book when it's your story and their story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really big. Not talking at them, not necessarily. You're drawing them out through your story.
Because I'm working on a manuscript now, and I don't know, because I've never done historical fiction before.
Okay.
And it's about the 1921 race massacre from the perspective of a 9-year-old girl.
Okay.
Who actually is a lady that I knew who'd been through it.
Okay.
When she was 9. But it's called The Last Witness.
Yeah.
And there's some portions of it that just, I wrote it and I'm sitting and reading what I've written and I'm crying. Then there's some portions of it, I don't know if I hit anybody with it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying desperately to have a friend of mine who just happened to be a Southern Chinese guy. And he's great with words and right. So he's reading me for them and get his thoughts in. And I'm trying to get about 4 or 5 different perspectives as to what have I actually written. I finished it, but I'm not sure it's right. I'm not sure it's good. I'm not sure it's bad. But
The Last Witness. You're 80 and still pushing the limit of the creativity and the having courage to put that message out there, even though you might feel insecure about it. Perhaps.
I'm not like 8 Habits of the Heart. it's just, it lifted me up. I mean, I still read the book for inspiration. You know, I still read 8 Habits of the Heart because it tells me how to be that better Cliff. And I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to be called to positive action, called to good thinking, called to good living. And if we're not called toward these things, we will do the easy thing. And oftentimes the easy thing is not none of those incredible things.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it makes me think of the phrase, angels of a better nature. You know, you're exercising that muscle by continuing to aim towards the better Cliff. Talk to me about calling. You growing up around ministry, I mean, with your grandpa being a preacher man, do you feel like you know, that word calling, you just mentioned it, the calling to do something, what does that mean? How does that play into decision making?
I think destiny placed me at my great aunt's home to grow up and to catch fire of the writing fire. Because, I mean, that was just like, she kept in touch with everybody. She wrote wonderful letters, and she read wonderful letters. I was a soldier, had not gotten assigned to Vietnam, and I wrote an article. My first article that was published in a newspaper was at the Greenville Democrat Times.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hardin Carter was the publisher, and we became good friends. Cool. With their family, and everything that I'd write, essay write, he'd always put it in the paper.
Cool.
You know, but the part about the calling, I am most happy when I'm writing, and the writing is talking to me. The writing is sitting in a chair right beside me. But it's not like I'm trying to pull something in. No, it's there.
Yeah.
And when when I was writing for this article called The Push Report for Washington, D.C., I read that article. I could still be writing them because it was writing me. I mean, even though it was my pencil on the laptop, but my fingers on the laptop, but it was writing me. And I think to a great extent, I won't say that's a sign of a good writer, but I write conversationally. And I write so that the other person can finish the sentence. And at the same time, bring their like stories to the page.
Sure. Well, I think it's so approachable as well, because again, like, thinking back on your life and the Forrest Gump-like, you know, how you're intertwined with civil rights movement, you're intertwined with, you know, Air Force One, politically, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor later in your life is interacting, Nelson Mandela. You have all these figures within politics, if you will, and yet you steered clear of politics. It seems like you steered clear of leading protests based on racial, you know, the racial relations. And yet you write these books that bring us all together and that hits a chord, white or black, no matter who you are. How did you do that? Like, how did you come about? I guess my question is, as a white guy, I can't ever fully comprehend what a perspective from a black guy my age would be like. I can only imagine, you know, times of anger, bitter, you know, rage, just want to fight back, protests, police brutality, things make you angry. And yeah, I don't see that from you necessarily. I'm sure you do get angry, but I haven't seen that side of it. My question, I guess, is, as a black man growing up in the segregated South, you've seen civil rights movement happen, and yet you didn't get necessarily drawn into a nasty fight. You brought another alternative. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's an assessment, but and it's not fair and unfair.
Okay.
It's an assessment because these are the questions that are often asked, and I think everybody was not born on sandcorn.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was not raised on sandcorn, and what will make someone react one way will make another person react an entirely different way. I was quiet. The closest thing to a memory of involvement was the night that money was getting raised to send Deacon Maxson to the NAACP meeting in Baltimore. And I remember how afraid the people were going to the church that night, how they carried their guns with them. I was a kid. I was probably maybe 8 or 9. But I remember my grade holding my hand very tightly. And no one was saying anything to each other. All you could hear were the crackling of broken limbs, small twigs, or rocks being moved as you will walk. But I was old enough to sense their fear because nobody was talking, and that was totally unusual. Got into the church, people were there, but they were standing guarding the doors and the windows and things like that. And I don't think we ever had a conversation about that on that way. But I've always felt that even when I was in the Air Force, what I was noticed for, my way to write the way I want the future to be and where I want the present to become. And that was my calling. Mm-hmm. My calling was what it was. And Mr. Wright, I was in Chicago, lecturing at a black bookstore where a pit of anger of being black in an area where you overlooked, underserved, and perhaps not utilized. But once upon a time, was the book being sold there that night, and it was the book that I was discussing. I had started my talk, and I had to really work hard to get my voice to project because I don't have a really loud voice. And but I was talking about the community that I knew, the community, the families, the people, the dreams, what they wanted for their children. I think I was called to give words to the frustration that the frustrated couldn't get. I think I was called to remind them, all of us, or even in the worst of times, you are among the best of people, and not to ever forget that. That's the way I felt. And right in the midst of my talk in Chicago at this bookstore, a lady stood up in the back of the church, stood up in the back, and she said, "Shut up and listen." And everyone got a little scared with her because you don't do things like that. There's someone, I'm speaking, and she was waving once upon a time when we woke up. And then she started crying. She said, "He's telling our story. This is our story. One of us know our story." She said, "This is our story. He didn't cut us up in 15 pieces. He left us like in broke old people. This is our story. Finally, someone has written our story." I think, regard your word calling, I was called to do what I do. And that's right.
Well, clearly it's made a tremendous impact. It touched the hearts of many, many, many people. And like you said, you've written the words for those to the voiceless. You've been a voice for the darkness.
Sometimes you can be so hurt and so humiliated and so cast down that you can't get enough energy to say, it was a mighty good morning yesterday. Well, someone has to say that. Because if someone does not say that, you may have the thought pattern that there never was a good day and there never will be a good day.
I love that. Say good morning to everybody. For the next month, what's your homework? And this community is
And I gave them a wave first. I gave them examples. I took my briefcase. I said, don't try to fool people by taking your briefcase in with you and walking so fast that you're telling them I can't stop because I got an important meeting to go to, and you know you don't. But you just don't want to hold that conversation of community.
Yeah. That Southern hospitality coming out of you, right? You know, I noticed often in bigger cities, we're in a hurry. Mm-hmm. You have more rural areas, you're not as much in a hurry, but yeah, I think that's a great message to look people in the eyes. Stop. You're not better. You're not so important that you can't say hello. Yeah. That's really important. I appreciate you saying that. Well, let's shift a little bit and let's talk about family. It sounds like you have a great relationship with Marshall. You guys are talking like every day, and you've been married for 51 years to Miss Barbara, and you guys have seen ups and downs and a lot in a half a century. If you could look back, you know, highs and lows with being a dad, a parent, and a husband, again, write a letter, if you will, to your 25, 30-year-old self, 40-year-old self, kind of in the midst of raising a family, starting your career transitions. What's something that you would say to your 40-year-old self, maybe going through a midlife crisis or whatever, to say good morning to that guy?
Well, parenting is kind of an awkward thing, but it's a wonderful thing. And oftentimes the male don't want to fail his father-in-law. You want to make sure that he's taking good care of his wife and the grandkids. Yeah. So he's going to be committed to work. And sometimes that commitment to work can be problematic because it can take so much time that we don't have enough time left to give to the people for whom we're doing all the work for. To recognize that your greatest treasure is not the one that comes in a check or a stock transfer. It's your children, it's the marriage, it's the family. And sometimes you have to reduce some things that you don't want to reduce in order to bring that other time out, or you assume the thing, well, we are nice home, a nice car, go on vacation. But that's not good enough. But it's often what you to say. If at that time frame in your life you have a son or daughter, make them the middle light, the light of your life. Not just work for them. Be with them. Be with them. And if you have to make less money, spend more time with your child, I would say do that. I said, give it concrete thought that I never thought. If I could ask me at Johns Hopkins, when I was working at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, they had brought in 120 kids from the underserved area. And I was one of the lecturers that day. And one of the young black men there, probably 17, maybe 16, he said, Mr. Taulbert, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do different in your life? He said, you're successful, you're a writer. Even I think you're a good writer. I mean, it's really funny. He said, but what would you do different? I said, I would spend more time with my son.
I understand some bills that. So prioritizing.
Because if you spend more time with your child, that's gonna open up your time spending vault, and you're gonna find you able to spend more time with in-laws and aunts and cousins and uncles. All of a sudden, spending time with your child, it sort of brings you into that understanding. I wasn't made to work 24 hours a day. You know, our greatest opportunity are our children and what we can bring to the table to make the best life for them that we can without ignoring their life and what their life requires of us.
A letter to your 34-year-old self regarding how to maintain or where to focus your energies with regards to faith.
Faith was a real part of my life. Faith was not a conversation. Faith was actions. Faith was my great-grandfather seeing me sitting on the steps by myself with my knees pulled to my chin, looking as far as I could. And all I could see was green field and cotton fields. And my great-grandfather would come out of the house, Clifton, let's go to Greenville. Take care of his great-grandson. The faith that moved him to be a good great-grandfather became the faith that I embrace. He lived his faith out. Is the preacher. But not only does he preach, but he takes me to Greenville when we had a little money to go there and little money for gas. But he realizes that I need to see something different anytime he had that opportunity. I just can't let this boy sit and watch a cotton field 24/7 for the rest of his life. So his faith became his actions. His action to give me a better view of myself. Understand what my great-grandfather would probably say, and this is what God requires of me. But I would have been too young to understand that conversation.
Sure.
But I wasn't too young to understand he didn't even sitting on the front steps.
So you talked earlier, maybe a practical thing, building community is as simple as saying good morning to everybody, saying wave. What's maybe something practical with regards to faith and how to exercise that muscle?
For me, I have no problem. I'm talking with my son about my faith, about what I said. I didn't know Jesus. We didn't go to the malt place together, but that's what I've been taught about him. That's what I've read about. That's who I believe in. I believe in that. That's part of me. It is part of my life, historically spent. Faith and the teaching of the Christian faith was woven throughout my life. And for me, that's part of the place that my life will always be. And this is what I want to share with you.
What is it like maybe or from a real practical standpoint, walking with God or, on a day-to-day basis? What does that mean?
I knew it's going to mean different things to different people. I can only tell you what it means to me.
Sure.
For me, I have no problem with that. Because the love that I received from the people who love me, they also had their faith that they loved equally as much. And they were giving all their faith to me, materialized out in a meal or new clothes or something that I need. Their faith was moving them to action. And I saw that. I lived with that. And I realized that in that thing to their faith, they were not taking as good a care of me as they did. I could become a burden instead of an opportunity.
When people do things and their motive is kind of a head scratcher, it's like, why? Why are you being so generous? Why are you being so selfless? Why do you have these 8 habits of the heart? Where is that coming from? You're saying it's coming from ultimately behind the scenes. It's the faith.
For me, that's my belief. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
That's what I live by, and hopefully that's what I live out. I mean, I've been in situations whereby someone had walked up to me and said, Mr. Taulbert, you must be a Christian. I said, why? He just said something about it. He's just so thoughtful. Yeah. So I say he must be one of them. And, and I take that one of them because Christianity, as it is written, is very welcoming. Yeah. It's always looking out for yourself, but looking out for the other person as well. Yeah. It's always about breaking bread and sharing bread together. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about.
Sure.
It's about, and the examples that were left, you meet people that you don't really care about. The faith kind of says, you better think about that twice. Yeah. Because, you know me, I went through some area where nobody just wanted to go there.
It's apparent, and the observations like you've crossed an aisle. You've taken a hand and crossed the aisle. That takes a lot of faith and courage. And I just admire you so much. It's been fun to watch. And one of the things like we're talking about is you're very good at showing people rather than you're showing people the gospel.
Yeah.
Rather than telling them about Jesus or what they should believe in.
Yeah. I met a guy at Jackie Cooper.
Okay.
I'm walking out in the parking area, waiting in my car to get this annual checkup or whatever I was doing. And when I would start talking to this guy, and he had a great conversation. And I got scared because he just started, this is a well-suited guy. And he's sitting there crying. He said, you don't know me. You don't have the slightest idea of who I am. But everything that came out of your mouth, I promise you is what I needed to hear. Thank you so much. And you know, if Christ is who he says he is, we will never be fully able to explain it in human terms so people can pick it up just like band something from the Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yeah. But it seems like that's probably not the only time someone came up and talked to you and said, hey, this interaction brought me to tears. It's changed my life. It's, yeah, that's really neat to look back on and consider how impactful your words have been. Tell me, I don't think we got this on camera, but you told me a story about going to military base or a reserve base and giving a speech. Maybe I'm wrong in that detail, but someone came up afterwards when you're in the commandant's office.
Yeah, that was in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
At the National Non-Commissioned Officer training.
Okay. Tell me what happened there.
And that's how I ask myself the question. Most times I'm very thoughtful about what I share and when I share it and if it needs to be shared. And I usually say before as I'm sharing something with you, it may not make sense, but it's something that happened and it happened at a place that makes it even more of a touch going for me. Because as much as I believe in church and all that, I'm still a human being. There could be my days I wonder where is God. There were days I wonder where was God. I said, but being in a place that is jam-packed with military men and women from around the world, our guys and those from our allies. And I'm talking about Alexander the Great. I'm talking about that and his role in leadership and the three-legged stool that he built, why he built it and what was the purpose for it. And trying to give these leaders and up-and-coming leaders a sense of understanding that leadership is more than just being in control of the boss. It's about creating an environment that allows you to be in control and lead a boss and get the things done that need to be done. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's it. That's the best that I'm wanting to be. Okay. And that's what I talked about. But in the commandant's office where I'm saying goodbye and this young soldier walks in, he just walks in and he salutes the commandant. He says to him, not to be good to me. And he said, I don't know you. I've never seen you before. I never even heard about you. But I want you to know that while you were speaking about Alexander the Great, I don't know what happened to me. But I changed. He said, I would never be the same person again. I never cared about a human being, none of it. He said, but I left this day, I'm leaving with love in my heart. And I can't explain why, when, and how that happened, but it happened.
So again, your maybe underlying motive, it's fair to say, oftentimes is faith. You just mentioned, you have times where you're questioning, where is God? What is God? What's your message to those guys that are going through that season of life where it's, angry at God, sad, scared, feeling lonely or whatever? What are you telling those guys?
God gave me a story, Tim. And the story is called Ann Gatherer. That's the story. I said, I know how it feels to be angry. I know how it feels to be out in that faith that you never had it before. You never want to even think about it. You're ready to die. You're just ready to live. Everything the church told you come back and snaps you in the face when you wake up and find your daughter dead. I've been there. But I've also been at a place when God used my son to give life back to me and his mom. And now what we do, rather than bemoaning the fact that we can't change what happened, or we can open make life better for others, we created the Ann Gatherer Fund. And Barbara's working hard now and let us get her go all across the country to raise money from families so we can send all the kids to camp with those that have sickle cell disease.
Wow. That's incredible.
I have watched Barbara go work, thinking about her daughter, tears in her eyes, shoveling food on people's trays and stuff like that, because she's doing it for Ann.
So you guys took a tragedy, and instead of crumbling and divorcing or whatever, you band together somehow, some way through the depression and through the grief. You're able to persevere and endure through that tough season.
Yeah.
And so again, like what you tell that guy that's going through the tough season, what's your message to him?
Seasons change. They don't always remain the same. You may get snowed under, but the sun has not disappeared.
Okay, we're going to finish up here. Tell me, again, for the folks that are listening, let's talk about career now. Yeah. Talked about faith. We talked about family. Let's end on finances and investing, spending, and giving money. From your perspective, what were some lessons learned, tough or positive or whatever, as you look back from a financial standpoint? Again, what's your letter to the 30, 40-year-old, whatever we should be thinking about with regards to money?
Always have a good lawyer. And I mean that.
Yeah, they're worth the investment.
Always have a good lawyer.
Okay.
And listen, whenever let the pull and the push toward what I call physical thing become so important that you have to overwork and overinvest to get the money you need in order to live the life you created. And I think a lot of the problem we create the problems ourselves, and then we try to pay for it. And the prices are very high sometimes. They're very high. But this is understandable. because we live in a world where people and things are companions. People, things, and stuff, you know. Amen. But never let your things and your stuff be more important than you are to your family and to the family of humanity.
That's good. Man can't serve two masters, right?
That's what it is.
Yeah. And especially in your 40s, it seems like 30s would be you really allow that to dictate a lot of your choices.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you're 35 and 40, I think that Marshall is doing well. He's not doing as well as he wants. He want to do more, and I appreciate that. But for me, as a father who believed in Christ, I share with him what Christ said about that. Let there be your God. But I don't try to tell him. I said, don't create a mess, and you know you're doing it. Don't do that, and then ask God to get you out of it.
Yeah.
I think, but that goes back to parenting. Parents should start early on, having a conversation with their children, letting them know we may not always live where we live. But because Marsha will tell you in a minute, I come from a middle-class family. I said, what middle-class family did you come from? I said, I don't know him. He said, well, Dad, he said, I went to private school most of my life. What are you talking about? You paid for it. I did. But at the same time, what else was I buying? Or what else should I not have been buying? I've had to think about that. So when he asked me to change schools from Metro, we had already paid his tuition. He said, Dad, I want to go to Jinx, back to Jinx, and graduate with my friends. And he wrote me a letter and asked me that. The letter was contrary to property too. And I've talked to another friend of mine. He said, Clifton, a son can come to you with so many problems. And here he's just simply asking me permission to change schools. I don't think you have a problem. I think you're blessed. Tell him yes, he can change schools.
Yeah, the parenting decisions get more complex and more complex as they get older, it seems like.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for sitting down with us and sharing your life story, sharing wisdom that you've earned and experienced throughout your life, your Forrest Gump-like story.
And you're always learning. You know, that's the other part of faith. Faith is never a done deal. Faith is always in motion.
Looks good. Well, thank you, Clifton. Would you mind closing us out with a prayer?
Not at all.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I do this because it's part of who I am. If I have to do it, I do it. So, Lord, we thank you for life. We thank you for friendship. We thank you for family. We ask that for all of those that are represented here, that you will put your dreams on their hearts and make their dreams mesh with your dreams. Bless their families. We ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you for joining us on this journey towards the long horizon. If you haven't yet, make sure to check us out on YouTube or follow us on your favorite social media and podcast platforms. We here at the Long Horizon Show are focused on building community. If you know someone who's seeking wisdom or could benefit from a community like ours, make sure to share this episode.